So we're going to be learning how to break the bricks. The sort of the whole point of the game is to break bricks, and right now we have a lovely sort of like board of things where the ball can bounce between them. It's actually pretty exciting, pretty fun. Just that much of it. But ultimately, if the bricks don't break, then what are we really doing in this game? Like, it's a pinball machine, really, which I guess that could actually be a pretty cool project. But let's break the bricks, and the first thing we want to do with this is to clean up some of our code. I think that one of the most important things about programming is learning how to organize your code so you don't make as many mistakes. And it's very tempting as you're like blasting forward in a project to just keep adding code and adding code. And eventually you end up getting kind of a mess. So we're going to take a minute just to organize it, because some of this code's getting messy. Like, look at this. Look, we got ifs inside of whiles, and it's just getting all sorts of stuff in there. It's quite dense, right? This looks pretty gross. And we're going to add more ifs onto it as well. So before we do that, I'd like to organize it a bit. So, and actually, I'll just mention what we have here for those of you who are wondering about, like, how do we make the bricks different colors as well. Then we got that going on. I did a really basic way of doing it. I didn't do anything too clever for this. I just have different if statements that are just like, hey, if the y coordinate is 100, then color it this color, and if it's 200, color it that color, and so on. So that's how I'm doing my colors. It's not necessarily the best way to do it, but it's certainly an effective way. It does kind of break our whole, don't repeat yourself concepts. A little bit basic, I guess, but that's okay. I think we'll leave it as that. But it's getting really long, right? All these if statements, and if you have more than 4 rows, like you got a bunch of if statements going on. So what I'd like to do is take all that code there from sort of the beginning of our filling all the way down to the bouncing code, and I'd like to turn that into a separate function so that we can see the details of the loop separate from the details of what we do with the brick. And this is a common strategy in computer programming. It's very similar to, in algebra, like the method of substitution, where you give a complicated thing a name, and then you just have that in your algebra equation just to simplify the equation. I don't know if you've done that in math yet, but that's a common thing to do in complex algebra. So it's sort of similar. We're going to give all this code a name, and we're going to put that in a separate function and just put that away somewhere so that we can see the details of this loop a little bit more. So what does all this code do? It's really doing the drawing of the bricks and doing the physics of the bricks as well, right? So it's really just managing the bricks. All this code from beginning here, this is the drawing of the bricks. This is the physics of the bricks. We could actually separate into 2 separate functions if you'd want. It could be this is drawing, this is physics. We could just do it all in one big function. I'll leave it up to you to decide. I'm going to do it all in one big one because I think that'll work out nicely. So I'm going to call this manage brick, because it actually just works for one particular brick. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to make a function down here. I guess I'll put it beyond game clicks. It doesn't really matter, but I'll put it underneath game clicks. So I'm going to say void manage brick. It's going to have some parameters. And then what I'd like to do is take this and copy and paste it into that function. So now all I have is this sad little while loop that's left over. I'm going to copy and paste it into manage brick. And then I'm going to put where that was, I'm going to type in manage brick. And it's going to we're going to have to send it a number. So what I've done here is, just in case that was a little bit too fast, I'll back it up. So all this code here, from my if statements to my circle to my bounce code, I've replaced it with manage brick. And there's going to be a little bit more to that. And I've pasted it into void manage brick. There it is. And that's going to make it easier because now my loop is so much smaller. It'll make it easier to add stuff to my loop. So I'm not seeing so much stuff at a time. Because all this managed brick stuff is pretty much locked in, right? We don't really want to change this. The physics is correct. the colors are correct, I can kind of put this away, lock it into this function, and say, let's not pay attention to that, so I can focus on the new stuff I'm going to add to this loop. There is one problem with our manage brick right now, and that is manage brick doesn't know what I is. If we were to run it, it would be like, what's I? It doesn't know. So what we can do is make a parameter for that. So we can make a parameter, it's just going to be int I, we can just call it I again, and then we can send it I from the loop. And so it'll know which I it is. So this will allow our manage brick to understand what is our I. And I'll send it as an argument right here. So manage brick now sends I, which starts at 0 and then goes to 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to n. So it sends it over to the manage brick function. So say it sends a 5, well then manage brick will get this as a 5, and it will check page 5 for all these things. And then it'll go to page 6, and it'll send it a 6 over and check page 6, and so on. I think the rest of the variables are fine because they're global variables, so I think it should work. So just to confirm this works, I'm going to run it, and just to make sure like it still works. I still see everything. I still get the physics, so that's good. So we haven't really changed the project in any major way in terms of like the computer. The computer doesn't care. But for us, now we have this much more readable while loop, so it's going to be easier to add things to it. Because basically we're just saying, start at 0, go up by 1, stop at when we get to the number of bricks, and each time just manage the brick. Whatever that means, like that's going to just happen. And we can sort of just think about that as the drawing and the physics of the brick. So now we can get to the breaking of the brick. So now that we have this set up, we can basically keep track of whether the brick has been hit or not. And then we can use that to determine whether or not we manage the brick. That's going to be the way we actually break the brick. The bricks aren't going to go anywhere. They're still going to be around. They're not going to disappear. I mean, they will disappear, but their math is still going to be there. We're just going to choose whether or not we show it and do the physics or not. So we're basically going to put this manage brick in an if statement to say, hey, if it's broken, don't manage the brick. And it'll basically disappear because we won't be drawing that circle and we won't be doing that physics anymore for that particular brick. So that's going to be basically the plan. So how are we going to keep track of which brick is broken? We're going to make another array. Another array that's going to have Boolean values, true or false. So we can check to see if a particular brick has been broken or not. If it's true, the brick is broken. Or should we do it the other way? Maybe false should be like broken? I don't know. I haven't quite figured that out yet. I think I'll say I'll make the array called broken. And if it's true, that means it's broken. And if it's false, then I don't know. The phrasing here isn't that important, but I'm kind of stuck on it. Alive? Oh, that's good. Let's make it alive. Let's make the array called alive. If it's true, then the brick is alive. If it's false, the brick is dead. So we'll make an array. So I'm going to go to my main tab. And it's going to be at the very top where I have my other arrays, right? My int array for x, my int array for y. I'm going to make another int array. It won't be int, actually. It'll be a Boolean array. So remember, Booleans are true or false. We learned about this in the the AI variable from the previous project from Pong. So it's just true or false. So book of true or false. As you flip through the pages, just true or false will be written on those pages. I'm going to call it alive. And we can just write down whether the bricks are alive or not. When you start the game, they're all alive. So when we initialize this, when we make all our bricks and tell them where to go, we'll also set the Boolean variable on that page to true as well, to say, yes, this is a live brick. So I'm going to scroll down to my setup. And then in addition to this stuff here in my while loop, so here in my while loop, I'm setting sort of the coordinates for a particular brick. While we're at it, we'll also be alive page I equals true. So we're telling each individual brick that you're alive. So that's the start of it. Now, alive is just true or false. It doesn't really mean anything. We have to go and give it some weight. We have to make it control something. So this is where our manage bricks function is now going to start paying off. It seems like it was just some extra work to do, But now check it out. Makes things a lot easier. When I go back to the game tab, and I scroll on down to my bricks loop, now it's a lot easier to build an if statement around this. Do you remember when it was all those if statements and all that stuff? It would have been really ugly to wrap that in an if statement. It would have looked pretty gross. So I think it's much better to have a nice simple thing like manage brick, even though it took a little bit of thinking to make it happen. And now we can say if alive sub I equals true, then do this. So basically, if brick number whatever it is alive, then manage the brick. If it ever gets set to false, then it won't manage that particular brick. It'll basically disappear because we won't be drawing that circle, and its if statement for checking collisions won't run either. So to break the brick, we basically just have to set alive to false on the correct page for that particular brick that had a collision. And then it won't show up anymore. And we'll be breaking bricks. So if I zoom out, where is that code where we actually would break the brick and set alive to false? It's right down here in manage bricks now. It's this piece of code right here. So this is the collision code, right, where we're checking to see if we're hitting that particular brick, if it's less than the sum of the radii. And then right now we do the bouncing code, so we figure out the right direction to bounce off. So in addition, I'll zoom out a little bit. We can also set alive page I to false. And that will record on that particular page that that brick is no longer alive. It'll say alive is now false. And that means in our loop that shows bricks, when it gets to that brick, whatever number it was, it won't show it anymore. And that's going to be great. If I run it, I think it'll work. Oh, I have an error. Null pointer exception. Oh, I forgot something. What did I forget? I forgot a really important step, and that is in the main tab, I forgot this step right here. I forgot that we have to tell the book, or the array, how many pages it's going to have. So let's go do that right now. So in order to do it, we just say alive equals new int n. Or no, it's not new int, it's new boolean. It's a boolean book. But it also has n pages because there's n bricks. Sorry about that, I just forgot that step there. Easy to forget because most variables don't require you to do that, but an array is a little bit special. You got to set it up to have a certain number of pages inside of it. Okay, let's try that again. Yeah, here we go. So, will they break? Yeah, look, they're breaking. They're breaking. And notice that they no longer interact. Like, if the ball travels through that space, it doesn't hit that brick anymore. Because those things are wrapped up in this if statement. That's what's seeing if it's colliding, right? But that if statement doesn't happen if alive is false. It can't get to that code to check it because alive becomes false. It basically just turns off the brick. The brick didn't go anywhere. It didn't get deleted or anything. It's still in the computer's memory. There's still that x and y coordinate that's listed somewhere. It can't actually do anything with those numbers anymore. It's like we said, don't check it if it's false. So now we're able to break the bricks. So I think the next step, which is something I won't do a video for, it's for you guys to try out, is to add in a scoring method. So every time you break the brick, for example, you could increase score by 1. And then we'll put in a win condition as well. So in this game, you can actually win or lose. So you could get to the end, and it should say, you win, when it goes to the game over screen. And that means you've broken all the bricks. Or you could lose the game because the ball went below the bottom of the screen more times than you have lives. So then you should go to a you lose screen. Some of you have the lives thing working already, some of you don't. So if you don't have lives, that's something to work on. And also getting it to win instead. How do you know if you won? So you already know how many bricks you have. You have n bricks, right? Me, I have 28 bricks. So if my score equals 28, I must have won the game, right? assuming I get 1 point per brick. You could change it so you could get like 100 points for bricks, but then like that's still easy math to figure out like what score do you need to get to win the game. And then when that happens, you can have some kind of if statement to catch that and change mode to game over. And you'll have to make your game over mode a little bit intelligent in the sense that it should know whether you died, if lives are less than 0, or if you won the game, if the score was equal to n, or some multiple of n. So you can give that a try as your second thing. I'm almost going to win. I didn't do anything because here we go. See if I can nail this. Oh, it looks good. Wow, I had so much trouble doing this game earlier. So clearly I should win at this point. And I'll know that if I was keeping track of a score, that would be displayed. You also want to display your score on the screen and your number of lives on the screen as well. So you can put that into the project. Okay, thanks everybody. Hope that made sense. And feel free to ask questions. If you're at home watching this, then post on Teams questions, and I'll be around to answer your questions. Everyone who's in the room.